what we want to do in this video, in this podcast, is basically look at the prophecies that were written way before the first Christmas, that are about the first Christmas. And it's actually insane. Like there's a lot of very specific prophecies written in the so-called Old Testament that when you look at what is recorded in the account of the New Testament, it's kind of jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
So we want to unpack that. And then I also want to tackle some of the astrology that we know was going on at the time that people kind of speculate. There's basically like 4 leading theories of what could have been what the Magi were looking at in order to be at the right place at the right time.
Okay.
Because that's a question that I always think is interesting.
Yeah.
What do these Magi have access to in the heavens? Plus, what kind of access to Jewish literature do they have from Daniel? We're going to get into all this.
Yeah.
That somehow caused them to be at the right place, at the right time, and with the right understanding in order to bring forth gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Like all of that is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So we're going to unpack that. And then what else are we going to hit on? Or is that everything?
No, I think that's it. All the prophecies around the birth of Jesus and the circumstances around his actual birth.
Okay, sweet. And we're going to try to, it obviously will never be quite exhaustive, but we're going to try to at least get some of the main highlights here just to like remember and reflect on, or maybe if someone listening to this is like a seeker, like this is pretty cool stuff. Yeah. And if you're a Christian, it's also really cool stuff, but you know, will hopefully also cause you just to marvel and worship and enjoy. So where do you want to start here? I guess go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's funny. I'll start with the story. I remember I was on the couch with my brother and sister. Like this is when I'm 16, 17 years old, and it's actually Bill Maher. And I can't remember like what TV show he's on or what he had back then, but this is 20 years ago. I'm 37. It's like, it had to be 20 years ago. And Bill Maher brings up the Christmas story and goes, Christians stole the Christmas story from pagan myths, from, Hinduism or Krishna. And he's basically trying to give different examples of like God being incarnate. Mm-hmm. Now the stories are always like some sort of sloppy version, but they're going, look, this came hundreds of years before the birth of Christ.
Right.
And and my brother and sister, I remember we're talking, they're like, that's interesting. Like almost like buying it. And now I'm just like starting to read I'm starting to take my faith serious around 16, 17. I'm starting to read the Bible more. But something that came to mind then, and like even to frame this conversation now, is did the Bible steal from the incarnation story, or did they steal from the very first prophecy ever given? So who stole first, I guess? Like obviously the Christianity did not steal from pagan religions. But I want to kind of throw this out there. When Jesus is speaking, when God is speaking to the serpent in Genesis 3, he says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring or your seed and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. So we call this the proto-evangelium. This is like the first gospel. Like it's just like the first gospel. I think the first time the gospel is mentioned, especially around the virgin birth or around the coming of the Messiah, is clearly Genesis 3. So like right at creation, God is saying through her seed will come the Messiah, and he will crush your head and you'll bruise his heel. And I almost want to introduce this conversation to, this doesn't start with, Micah or Malachi. It doesn't start with different prophecies around where Jesus will be born. It starts all the way in the garden. Like it starts right away saying, hey, your seed, woman, which is a bizarre term. Women don't have the seed or carry the seed. And he's saying, in your seed, I will put enmity between your seed and his seed, and I will bruise your head, Satan. So he's basically saying, woman, you're going to have this seed, and this through this.
Wait, bruise?
It says bruise or crush the serpent's head.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you could use the language bruise or crush.
Okay.
It says bruise here, crush his head.
Okay.
But that's the idea. The idea is right away we see God saying, you're going to have this seed, and through this seed will come the crushing of the serpent. Mm-hmm. And again, it's this allusion right away to the virgin birth. It's not Isaiah 7. That's not the first passage. I would say the first passage regarding the virgin birth is Genesis 3:15, because women don't carry the seed. And it's a very weird use of language. Like whenever the seed is mentioned, it's associated to man.
Right.
So it's already like kind of hinting at this, through this woman and her seed will come the Messiah, and he'll crush the head of the serpent, Satan. And I just find that interesting that we see, I think the first Christmas story or glimpse is in the garden in Genesis 3:15.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks to, like you said, the virgin birth, but then it also contains the secondary information that there will be some damage taken by the Son of Man, by the one who is immaculately conceived, the prophesied about Messiah. He will actually take on damage, but then he will more he will totally damage the serpent. So
Yeah.
it, like, the way that the cross leads to the destruction of evil or the victory over death is also, I think, wrapped up in that prophecy.
For sure it is. Yep.
Like, it could have gone down a number of different ways, but you will take on damage. Your heel will be bruised, but his head will be bruised, or his head will be crushed. So you'll take a little damage, and yet in the act of you being damaged, you will ultimately undo the power of evil that the serpent has over mankind.
Yes.
The fact that all of that is kind of wrapped up in this simple single verse in Genesis 3:15, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
That's amazing. I mean, that kind of right away also kind of sets the tone, though, for the rest of the scripture of like, okay, where is this woman's seed? And you can almost think like originally Cain and Abel, maybe they thought that like right away, like, okay, here's Cain, you know, here's the Messiah. You actually kind of think like the Christmas story might start off with Cain, because in your seed, she gives birth. And then you're like, is this the one? And then Cain ends up murdering his brother. So clearly he's not the, you know, clearly this is not the Messiah. But I'm just thinking like there is like this hope of, okay, where is this one that will come and crush the serpent's head?
Right.
And there's this like, desire for the Messiah. So like the Old Testament, if you could frame in many ways, is just looking for the Messiah. And it gets more and more specific, you know, as like the Bible kind of develops. You have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, his 12 sons. Then you have Judah, and the scepter shall not depart from Judah. And he, you know, it's like related to Bethlehem in that Genesis passage. So you kind of see like even glimpses before, like, how do we know Jesus will be born in Bethlehem? Like you see it right away. The story's kind of being directed that through this obscure place, Bethlehem, the Messiah is going to come. But I mean, it is quite a journey, and I don't know if we're going to cover all of the prophecies around the coming of Jesus. But
well, I wouldn't mind starting in Isaiah, just because there's a few here that are very specific and undeniably prior to the incarnation and prior to the first century. This is written roughly 700 years before, and those who are familiar with the whole Wes Huff going on Joe Rogan and making the claim that the Great Isaiah Scroll is word for word identical to the later Masoretic text and all of this will be familiar with the fact that this is accurate from a textual criticism perspective. It's verified, and it's, again, 700 years before. So the point of that is someone didn't like write these prophecies in after the fact. We actually have archaeological proof in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the like we have the Great Isaiah Scroll, which is totally intact from beginning to end with 99% accuracy and clearly dated, like undeniably, like no one disputes this, dated way hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before Jesus.
Yes. And
including this information. And all that's really important, because the second I read this, you're going to say, well, they obviously somehow wrote that after the fact.
Yeah.
Like they had to have. No, they did not write this after the fact. This was the prophet Isaiah in chapter 7, verse 14, writing this: behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. And in chapter 11, verse 1, he also writes, there shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, that is David's father.
Yeah. Okay,
so he's telling you this is in the line of David. And then also, where was the other one I wanted to hit? No, there's one other one I wanted to hit. But for now we can leave. There's one big one I'm missing. Oh yeah, right here. Sorry. Isaiah 9, 6-7 says this: for unto us a child is born. In fact, let's read the whole thing, because I do you have that pulled up here?
Yeah, Isaiah 9.
Yeah, Isaiah 9, 6-7. I want to read the whole thing, because I just have a quick version which says, for to us a child is born, and we shall call his name Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and that he'll be on the throne of David. But I want to read this whole thing, because this particular one is one of those ones that you're just like, that is genuinely wild that is written 700 years prior to Jesus, in light of what we know to be historically true about Jesus in terms of when he was born, what he did, all the factors of history that you can't just contrive and be like, let's just have him be born in Bethlehem. Well, no, there was a consensus taken. We know, let's have him die under Pontius Pilate. No, we know he died under Pontius Pilate. We have the Pilate stone. We literally have an archaeological stone corroborating that. That is not some Christian propaganda. And on like, so all these things are basically able to be corroborated by the historical methods that you use to know what is true historically, and are all testified here 700 years prior. So I don't know if you want to read the whole thing or not, but it's kind of
Isaiah 9,
Isaiah 9, 6-7. Is I think, in my opinion, kind of like the big enchilada in terms of its specificity.
No, of course. I mean, and this is built off the back of Isaiah 7, right? So I mean, it's building off it. So it's a lengthier passage, but he says, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end. On the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness. From this time forth and forevermore, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this." I think the question is, how could this be a man? How could this be just a man? How could this just be one of the kings from the tribe of Judah, which eventually fell to the Babylonians? You know, how could this be like, so his peace shall be no end. His government of peace, there will be no end. And you're going, well, what king could this possibly be? You know, who is this one who bears these titles? Who is this everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, Mighty God? And is the idea of mighty God just God is with him in a sense that God is with all of us? Is this alluding to the fact that this is God among us, Emmanuel? This is why I think Matthew's gospel is so critical for really specifically this topic. Like, you kind of have to, I don't want to say you have to. I love Matthew's gospel for this reason, because there's such a Jewish bent. And he's the one going, no, Isaiah 7:14, like that's referring to Jesus. Isaiah 9, like he's the one who, even to me, pulls like random texts like Hosea 11, and like, he shall be called out of Egypt. I would never view that as like referring to the Jesus's early years being called out of Egypt back into, you know, the Nazareth, Galilee area. Like, I just kind of view this as so interesting. So I would say this, if you're kind of curious about the birth of Jesus, Matthew's gospel has you in mind to say, hey, I want to connect the dots, right? You know, from Genesis to Malachi. I want you to see that the birth of Jesus was clearly foretold. I would not just where, I would say when, which is super significant. Under what circumstances, right? You know, even this idea of a forerunner going before him that would later come on the scene pointing to him. So there's all these prophecies that you can't, like what you're trying to argue, I think early on was, not trying, you did it, but you can't like knowingly put yourself into those prophecies, because a lot of these are out of your control. Right. No one really determines where they're born. Or even if your parents try to manipulate that, you know, going, okay, now we got to flee to Egypt because of persecution and then be called out of Egypt. Right.
Yeah. Well, and that one, just to make that clear for the listener. Yeah. So that's Hosea 11:1, where it says, out of Egypt I called my son, which is fulfilled in Matthew 2:13-15, where we see the event that you just described. Herod is persecuting, like the death to the firstborn son, that whole thing. And that causes them to go to Egypt, right? Yeah. But then in that reaction to something that Herod is doing, and Herod's not part of the conspiracy. Yeah. Herod's just like, right? So they react to Herod. That leads them to Egypt. Them being in Egypt leads to the prophecy being fulfilled.
Which I never would have read as Hosea 11:1 and be like, that's about the Messiah. Right. Like I think that some of the things we do need to do, and I so appreciate the New Testament, like the book of Acts, the Gospels, where there's certain Psalms used. There's certain passages like Hosea where you're like, I don't know if I would read that and go, this is about the Messiah. And I'm grateful it does, because there are some obscure passages you're going, what is this? So I want to
even Psalm 22. Is that what you were referencing?
Psalm 22, but there's so many Psalms like in the New Testament referencing either the resurrection or something about, you know, one of his friends betraying him, or like there's all these passages around like the time of Jesus where you're like, I don't know if I would read that Psalm and go, oh, that's clearly talking about the Messiah and what his friends will do to him. Or that's clearly talking about the Messiah and how his garments will be distributed, you know, or whatever. I just think there is something about reading when you read Matthew's gospel specifically around the birth of Christ, it makes you appreciate, I would say, the big picture of how this is not like an afterthought. Right. God was not like, oh, I really tried the law thing that failed. Now let me try sending my son. Like, you know, like almost like Jesus gave the analogy, like we sent prophets, that failed. I sent my son and then you killed him too. It's not like the coming of the Messiah was an afterthought to God. Like this was written right away, Genesis 3, all the way through, like the idea of even he will be Davidic. He,
Mhm.
you know, whether it's through, you know, he will be able to carry that royal line. And like, we see how Joseph fulfills that. Mary fulfills that.
Right.
Matthew's gospel shows Joseph's lineage leading to Jesus.
Right.
Then you have, you know, Luke's gospel through Mary leading to Jesus. And then you have John's gospel. It's the divinity. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God.
Right.
And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us.
Right.
But what I love about that is you kind of have that third, really, you have like, oh, he's actually divine though as well. Because who is this mighty God? Isaiah 9 talks about.
Well, that's the thing is, like, again, just to try to make this clear, because I'm like looking at it here. You guys might just be listening to it, but when the name that is given to him is Emmanuel, that means God with us.
Yeah.
So that's really important. Like the name you're being given is God with us. That's a really big deal in the sense of people say Jesus never claimed to be God. Well, first of all, he did, but second of all, the angels said that he was.
Yeah.
Mary understood that he was. This is all, like, if you just read the account, it's so crystal clear what's going on here. It like what is going on here is a incarnation. It's highlighted in the heavens. The Magi understood the meaning of that, and we can get into that in a second about the gifts that they gave him. Make it clear that they understood who he was and what this all meant. Mary is literally told us. We could also go to, you know, Zechariah and the whole that whole side of things, right? So the point here is just read the account, and it's very obvious what's going on. I would even say that the born of a virgin aspect itself is something that God did to highlight it, to make it clear, to say he's going to be born of a virgin. That's really unusual, isn't it?
Yeah,
that is weird. That doesn't normally happen. Okay, pay attention to that. There's going to be a giant star in the sky pointing down onto Bethlehem that will actually guide people from pagan nations to be at the right place at the time. That doesn't always happen, does it? Yeah, that doesn't always happen. Yeah, something really significant here is happening. So I'm arguing that, to agree with your point, this is not some Christian, you know, Dan Brown novel. Like, we're all just getting creative and like looking back in the Old Testament and going, what if?
Yeah.
What if this verse about, like the one you quoted, Genesis 3:15, what if that has to do with like Jesus defeating death on the cross? There could be something there. Hear me out, bro. That's not what this is. And we're not doing something out of the ordinary or unusual or in any way like grasping at straws or seeing what we want to see inside of a Rorschach ink blot test or anything like that at all. In fact, Christ himself at the right time quotes Psalm 22. So he's actually telling us the Old Testament is talking about, he's doing this. Like, if that's being conspiratorial, then Jesus himself is actually, is it also falling into that same problem? It's obviously not a problem. Every story whispers his name. Christ, in the moment of relevancy, harkens our attention back to Psalm 22. Another example, on the road to Emmaus, it says he walks them through. So this is after he's risen. He's on the road to Emmaus. He finally reveals his appearance. Oh my word, you're Jesus. Whoa, this is crazy. And it says he walks them through the Old Testament and he shows them all the places that we're talking about him. So it's all there. It's all there for the taking. And for us to sit here and go, hey, this is kind of crazy. Like Jeremiah 31:15 says, a voice was heard in Ramah weeping, Rachel weeping for her children. And then in Matthew 2, like you're saying, Matthew brings it up a lot. You have Herod slaughtering all the children in Bethlehem. I wonder if there's something there. So like once you have the hypothesis that every story whispers his name, that there is that there are references to the future in the Old Testament. Once you run with that hypothesis, you start to go, wait a second. So like, let me just be quick and then I want to turn it over to you.
Please.
But like, what I'm saying here is in Isaiah, you get a specific mention of a virgin birth, which happens. You get the idea that Jesus is in Micah, that Jesus is going to be born in Bethlehem, because it says in Micah 5:2, but you, O Bethlehem, Ephraim, from you shall come forth for me one who is to be a ruler in Israel. That is fulfilled. Jesus is born in Bethlehem. And that was written in the past.
The son of David, born in Bethlehem.
The son of David, exactly. Descendant of David, according to the pattern of Isaiah 11:1. Well, he'll be a descendant of David. He was a descendant of David. we already covered Isaiah 9:6 that a child will be born, and the titles that he's given, the kingdom the government that is upon his shoulders, all those things. Okay, that there's something real that's there. We already hit on Hosea 11:1. Out of Egypt I called my son. Well, they actually went to Egypt. Okay, the massacre of the innocents that we hit in Jeremiah 31:15. Here's another one. The star as a sign. So this is an interesting one. Numbers 24:17 says this: a star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. So a star shall come out of Jacob, a scepter, which means same idea, government upon his shoulders. Who has a scepter? A king. A king has a scepter. A scepter shall rise out of Israel. And what did the Magi follow in order to get to the right place at the right time? A star. How did they understand that? When I want you to unpack this, but when they got there, they came with gifts.
Yeah.
Their gifts contained symbolism and meaning, and it conveys to us, the reader, that they had knowledge about who he was, and their gifts inform us about what they knew about him.
Dude, this is so good. So it's almost like we got to like zoom out. What you're describing with the Magi specifically in Numbers 24. So let's just kind of zoom out for just a second, because I want to do my best to understand this. In Numbers 24, there's a guy named Balaam talking to Balak. Think Balak, ends with a K, think king. Balak the king hires Balaam, an astrologer, who's he's a sorcerer essentially, but he's somehow also this man of God. He's not Jewish. And Balak the king hires Balaam to curse God's people. Now read the story. It's interesting. It's fascinating. There's a donkey involved that talks. It's like Shrek. I don't know, but it's fun. But basically he's like, I will go and say whatever God puts on my mouth. And then 3 times Balaam, who's paid by Balak to curse the nation of Israel, pronouncing these like prophetic blessings over them. And so what's interesting is what you just quoted, this star that comes out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. So you see like this idea of royalty will come from here. This star, this will be, and you're kind of going, what is this obscure prophecy? And then it's funny. So you have basically wise men astrologer from the East, Balaam. He's a wise man astrologer from the East. And then you fast forward to Jesus' birth, you have wise men who are astrologers from the East. So I do think there is a connection clearly from this Numbers prophecy to these other wise men from the East who are also astrologers. So the Magi, these are the most interesting guys ever, right? But think Magi, magician, magic, don't think David Copperfield, but these guys were basically always a part of some sort of really like royalty kind of, they were almost like the guys that royalty called on, hey, we're going to go into war. Are we going to win or lose? And do your seances, or, look at the stars, help me find out if we're going to win or lose. So basically the Magi were used or called upon to kind of speak prophetically into royalty. Now, obviously this kind of brings us to Daniel, when the nation, when Judah specifically is taken captive to Babylon, and you have the book of Daniel being written, and you have the king having dreams, and you have Daniel interpreting the dreams, and the king's so impressed with Daniel that he makes him the head over the Magi. So think the Magi were from the East, and we have to connect the dots. Daniel is called to be essentially the ruler, the leader of these Magi. Daniel is not a sorcerer. Daniel's a man of God. He loves the Lord. God gave him the ability to interpret dreams. Clearly, he won the king's ear. Like the king respected him. Clearly, the other Magi respected him. Like he was a well-respected man. Now, you think about this. He must have, there's no other option to me than this guy to tell us, Daniel, you're from Judah, you're from Jerusalem, you're from this region, your family is. Tell us about your God. Tell us about your belief systems. Tell us about what you believe. Clearly, he would have talked about the Messiah. Well, hey, our people are waiting for a deliverer. You think about how he would have been like, yeah, you want to know what we believe? We believe that there is one God, and this God is going to send a deliverer for us. And then he's probably the one also, I genuinely believe, just walking through these, hey, look out of Bethlehem. This idea of because he's going to be of the line of the tribe of David. Right. Even if Malachi or Micah isn't written yet, or even if they don't have access to that, or even if there's some other reason whatever. You're kind of going, but they would have access to this Davidic king from Bethlehem. And Genesis 49 talks about that. Yeah. So I think this idea of the Magi coming from the East, there has to be some connection. Maybe it's their great-great-great-grandfather is the one that told them, no, this guy, Daniel, blew us away, and he's an interpreter of dreams, and he was a wise man, and he was brilliant. And he told us about this Messiah that would come on the scene.
Mhm.
And the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because Daniel, I think, gave the most specific prophecy in all of the Bible clearly.
Mhm.
So Daniel goes and gives the 77 prophecy, which the reason why I think this is good. And
Where is this located?
so in Daniel chapter 9,
Okay.
Daniel gives what we call the 77 prophecy. Like there's 77-year periods Daniel talks about. He talks about this 7-year period, 49 years,
Mhm.
this other 62 7-year period, and then 1 7-year period.
Is this verse 24 through 27 roughly?
Yes. Yeah. Do you want to read it?
Yeah. Or me read it or you read
Yeah,
it?
go ahead, please.
Okay. Okay. So 77s are decreed for your people and your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. Should I keep going?
Keep going.
Okay. Know and understand
Yes.
this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the anointed one, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. It will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. After the 62 sevens, the anointed one will be put to death and will have nothing. The people of the ruler who will come to destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end, and desolations have been decreed. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. In the middle of the 7, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. And at the temple, he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that is decreed is poured out on him.
So I want to say, if you're listening to this, there's so much there. It's going to be very hard.
I was going to say,
unpack this.
I actually need a breakdown on this.
So verse 24 to 25 is what I want to specifically look at.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah.
so there's 77s. So he says, know therefore and understand that going forth from the command to restore and build Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks.
Mhm.
So he actually, here's why, and if you can focus right now, if you're driving or listening, I know it might be difficult, but because this in some ways is like a math problem.
Mhm.
But he goes from the decree to go forth and build Jerusalem. Okay, so think about your Daniel and your
Mhm.
city's torn apart and destroyed,
Mhm.
and you're held captive in Babylon. And he has this vision that there will be this 7-year period and 62 7-year period. So that's 483 years. Okay. 7 times 7 is 49.
Mhm.
62 times 7, I forget right now, but total 62 7-year periods plus 7-year periods is 483 years.
Okay.
Here's what I want to direct your thoughts to. There's a guy named Sir Robert Anderson. He wrote a book about this, I think it's called The Coming Prince.
Oh, sorry. Because just to make sure that this is clear for them. So in
Yes.
verse 26, it says after 62 sevens.
Yes.
So that's how you're getting 62 times 7. Because he's saying there's 62 sevens that take place.
Yes.
Okay. So sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so because it's from the decree to restore and build Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince is literally the language. He's telling you about could not be more clear.
Right.
Until Messiah the Prince, there shall be 7 sevens, 62 sevens. Then he talks about the Messiah being cut off. So we're gonna kind of hit pause on that because that's clearly about the cross, right? He's cut off. It literally says this, by the way. He's cut off, but not for his own, not for himself, but for his people. So there's a substitutionary death idea, which is unbelievable. He's cut off, but not for himself, but for his people. So this is around the birth of Christ, the cross of Christ. Really, the reason I'm trying to bring this up is you have like a time frame of when the Messiah will be made known. Think about Jesus coming into Jerusalem, riding in on a donkey. Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, right? And then he's cut off a week later. Basically, you have Palm Sunday, then you have Good Friday. He's cut off, but not for himself, for his people. So you have this time frame of when the Messiah will come, when he will be the Messiah, until Messiah the Prince, 7 7, 62 sevens. Now, why is this significant? I mentioned Sir Robert Anderson. He wrote a book and he kind of does the math of this. And here's what's interesting. I want to make this clear. According to Nehemiah chapter 2, okay, in Nehemiah, when Nehemiah is the cupbearer to the king, and according to Nehemiah 2, on March 14th, 445 BC, this is just historic, the command was given to the Jews to go back home and to rebuild Jerusalem and restore the temple. So from the going forth of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, we have the date with King Artaxerxes. You have that date with Nehemiah. So literally the decree is given, and this is unbelievable. Nehemiah 2.
And you're saying that matches the timeline.
So 445 BC, okay? And then you add this idea, he does the math. Now, their calendar's not our calendar. I think it's based off 360 days. We have a Gregorian calendar that they had a different calendar than us.
Yeah, like the Hebrew calendar.
Yeah.
Right?
And like there's debate around when Jesus was born, by the way. So we're getting into some like fun facts here, but Jesus wasn't born at 0.
Right.
Like some believe it might have been 4 BC actually is the day Jesus was born. So there's the math, if you do this on your calculator, won't completely add up, but I actually wrote it out. So based off, if you use a 360-day calendar and by 483 years, you get, and this is what Sir Robert Anderson does. I'm not making this up, but he writes this out. You get 173,880 days. So follow the math. You have 483 years based off 360 days.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 173,880 days. What do you mean? From the decree, March 14th, 445 BC.
I'm tracking.
Okay, you add those days. Basically, this is his conclusion. Anderson states that if you add that, March 14th, 445 BC, all the way to 173,000 days, you get April 6th, 32 AD. Okay. Now, regardless, here's what I want to say. That's basically when the Messiah is cut off.
Mm-hmm.
It's talking about until Messiah the Prince, and then he's cut off for his people.
Mm-hmm.
The reason, why does this have to do with the birth of Jesus? I'm going to get there. But this is what's so cool.
But you're saying that perfectly maps onto when we understand the crucifixion to have happened.
Yes, like it's unbelievable to think that Daniel, the leader of the Magi, is saying, "Let me tell you a prophecy. There's gonna be 7 sevens and 62 sevens added together from the going forth to rebuild Jerusalem. The decree is given March 14th, 445 BC. Go rebuild Jerusalem. That's 445 years BC.
Can I add one other thing
Please.
to this? I don't want to throw off your momentum because this is awesome, but the crucifixion of Jesus is better attested to by secular sources than the birth of Jesus by far, or better than any of the other events in his ministry. The event you're talking about, that he was crucified under Pontius Pilate, is the most externally corroborated fact of his life.
Yeah.
Which is important here because I'm just kind of trying to put on my skeptic hat. Oh, well, maybe they said it was then in order to match the prophecy. Maybe the Christians just lied and said it was then. Well, that doesn't work because this is affirmed by, Josephus, Tacitus, and on, right? This is a historic fact. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, dude, you're absolutely right. It's a historic fact, but I can't stress this enough. Like, to our Jewish friends, Daniel gives a prophecy.
Right. It's crazy.
It's insane. Specifically, these 7. He breaks it up. These 77s. And again, I know it's a little confusing, but he breaks it up. These 49 years, and there's the conversation about what that is. But it's 49 plus the 62 sevens, so it's 483 years from the going forth. It literally says, he says, know this and understand that from the going out of the word to restore and build Jerusalem. So he gives you a start date. Isn't that crazy? He gives you a start date from the word to go and rebuild and restore Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, is cut off. So the idea is the Messiah will be made known and he will be cut off. And so March 14th, 445 BC, you add the days according to Sir Robert Anderson, this 173,880 days. He's just saying, regardless of how you look at it, the Messiah must be around the time of Jesus, regardless, until Messiah is cut off. Literally, the Messiah is the word that's used.
Right. So you're saying to the Jewish
friend,
believer friend, you would say, like, guys, this
is talking about your Messiah
omits
yes
all other messianic candidates who don't fall within this narrow range of time, according to Daniel.
It's insane.
This excludes everybody else. So then who is left on the table as a plausible candidate?
Absolutely.
Well, there was that one guy named Jesus from Nazareth.
Yes.
Who, from
the Davidic line.
Right.
Right. Like everything we've kind of named, but this is why it's so key. So you're going, okay. So 445 BC, let's say 32 AD. Let's just kind of get that out there. You basically have 445, again, think plus or minus a few years based off the AD, the calendar. It's based off the days. But you're going to get around that 32 AD. Regardless, you're like, even if this isn't a perfect science and Sir Robert Anderson got some details wrong, I'm saying it actually gives you 483 years from the time that it's decreed to build this to the Messiah being cut off. Regardless, you're in the 30s BC.
Yeah, you're within a really, really narrow parameter of time.
Yes.
That, again, if that's the window that it has to happen within, that's excluding any candidate outside of that window. That's the point, right?
Absolutely. Because, I mean, again, this is why it's so tricky. It's like, to the coming of an anointed one, a prince. So it's literally describing the Messiah. The anointed one is the Messiah.
Right.
So,
this is, by the way, this is Daniel.
This is Daniel.
This is so many years before Jesus.
And who's Daniel over? The Magi. And what would they have access to? This prophecy.
Okay, so
Dude,
that's
this is
what
where it gets-
so that's what I
yes.
wanted you to tie in. So
Yes.
so is it?
So you're kind of thinking like this: the Messiah is gonna have to come and be known, and obviously you're kind of like thinking about his birth. Then,
right?
Where is this guy? And so, in some ways, or in many ways, you're kind of also trying to map in. Okay, we know the Messiah will probably be made known. He'll probably be an adult. He'll be cut off, not for himself, but for his people. This Daniel 9 prophecy is this is the most detailed and insane prophecy ever,
Yes.
in my opinion.
Yes.
And you're kind of going, okay, so his birth should be any day. This is why I think you have Simeon waiting in the temple for the Messiah.
Mhm.
The Holy Spirit confirmed, like, you will not see death until you see the Lord's Messiah. Like,
Right.
so there is Simeon, there is Anna, but I also think there's Daniel 9.
Mhm.
There is this idea that, the Messiah should be here any day now. Now,
Yeah.
this star rising up for the
Mhm.
Magi is interesting.
Yes.
I think it connects again to the Numbers prophecy. This
Yes.
star that will rise.
That's right.
Okay, so you're connecting the star to Daniel 9.
Mhm.
You're saying, oh wait, these Magi from the east will come. So these sorcerer, and here's the thing too. You're like, wait, I thought God condemned sorcery. Yes, absolutely. And here's what we also know. So Deuteronomy, Leviticus, God condemns sorcery. God condemns astrology. He condemns their practice. Absolutely.
Mhm.
But God, in his grace and sovereignty, has decided to meet people where they're at.
Mhm.
That's what I'm just so grateful for that. Like, that is a thought I actually want to like develop more with you, because it's almost like, wait, these are pagans.
Yep.
And know what's crazy again with all this? Matthew's book is dedicated really to the Jewish people, like to the Jewish perspective. Matthew's like, let me connect the dots of how this is Jewish history.
Mhm.
That's why it's ironic and interesting to me that Matthew goes, let's begin my gospel by showing Gentile pagans coming to worship the Messiah, of the King of the Jews.
Mhm.
They even say, where's the King of the Jews? And so, first of all, we know the Messiah is not just for Jewish people. The Messiah is for the hope of the world, the saving of the world. And it's interesting that you have Gentile pagans who are more on the search for the coming of the Messiah,
Yes.
sadly, than maybe their own Jewish people. Yes, Simeon, yes, Anna, yes, there's like a remnant that were looking for the Messiah.
Mhm.
But I'm saying Daniel 9's prophecy, and then Daniel being over the Magi, sharing, they were amazed by him. He was brilliant. He was wise. He helped save, like, he's a great guy. And you hear this like idea of like this Jewish Messiah. You know, there has to be this like, okay, who, where, when? And these,
Right.
and then your whole thing is now the stars are.
I want to go
Yeah.
to that in a second, because and I know for some people this layer of things is not necessary, because you might view it more of just, God can do a miracle, God can just manifest a light in the sky. But for those who care about things maybe being more like corroborated or historical, or like wanting some kind of like potential scientific basis that could have been what they're referencing,
Yeah.
there's a few really interesting astronomical facts that I want to cover. And again, I want to set this up for a second. So you've established a narrow parameter of time that that the crucifixion of Jesus would need to happen in order to be a legitimate, in order for Jesus from Nazareth to be a legitimate candidate for the Messiah.
Mhm.
And you're saying he falls within that narrow window of time, whether there's a little 4 to 7 year shift,
Yeah.
according to the difference of the calendars or whatever. It's still in terms of history, it's an extremely narrow window of time that Jesus falls within, and that other messianic candidates simply do not.
Yeah.
Okay, that's important. I'm saying additionally, these wise men who are pagans, who are from probably Babylon, right? They were Daniel is in Babylon. Daniel, by being in Babylon, is giving them some access to the Jewish scriptures. They have something in their cultural consciousness that is relating to what we're talking about
Yes.
here. And additionally, as good wise men, as good astrologers and pagans, they're very interested in the stars. This is something that we know from history. That was a major factor at the time. So I believe they were actually looking at the heavens. And they were actually seeing something that was unusual and significant.
Yeah.
And I want to cover, there's 4 major candidates for what they could have been looking at that would have triggered in their mind, aha, this could be significant. This could be that messianic prophecy. This could be that star that's pointing us in the right direction, that caused them, again, somehow they got to the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So here's the first one. In the year 7 BC, there was a triple conjunction where Pisces, where basically Jupiter and Saturn were extremely close together, which would create the appearance of an unusually bright star.
Okay.
So that's one theory. People say, now, I actually really quick should mention one other thing. There's all kinds of narrow windows of time that you could look and say nothing unusual at all going on in the heavens. No like scientific reason to believe that there would have been a bright star. That's what's really important.
Yeah.
But if you look at the time when Jesus was said to have been born, this narrow, like let's call it like a 10-year sliding window because of the calendars and whatever, but like within this narrow 10-year amount of time, again, picture taking a 10-year window and sliding it across the time, and you go, nothing, like the skies look normal. You come to this and you go, wait a second. Okay. Like I said, in 7 BC, there's this conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn that would have caused something unusual. Also, in 2 BC, on December 17th, there is a close alignment of Jupiter and Venus, which could have appeared as a super bright star. Also, in 5 BC, the Chinese annals record a massive comet that moved slowly and could have been perceived as possibly standing over. So that's just, these are like unusual events.
Yeah.
The fourth one is that there was a supernova in 4 BC that was, and these are again things that are not just like Christians saying. These are things from the ancient world that, like, we have a Chinese source for this. We have different sources for these things. And so the interesting thing about that is any one of these is a plausible candidate for them going, whoa, what's that?
Yeah. That's different.
That's different. That's unusual. And I actually don't, nobody knows which of these it was. But the point is, they saw something, and as good pagans, they went, I think this has meaning to it.
Yeah.
And this ties into what we have in our cultural consciousness based on Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
And they follow that star,
Mm-hmm.
and it leads them to, of all places, Bethlehem.
Mm-hmm.
The prophesied about Bethlehem.
Yeah.
It leads them to, of all places, this manger where there is, in fact, this little prince,
Mm-hmm.
this little anointed one who is given the name Emmanuel, God with us.
Mm-hmm.
And they are able to get there at the right place at the right time. And I want to turn it over to you here.
Yeah.
Somehow, and riddle me this, Batman, somehow they're bringing gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
Yeah.
Why are they bringing those things with them when they follow the star and they go to Bethlehem? So they're following data and they're coming to this manger, and they're coming with gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Why is that?
Okay, let's talk about that. So if you have a Bible, I almost want you to read it yourself. So follow what Brandon just said and how it led you to this place of the Magi being aware of the Daniel prophecies, because they're Magi from the east. Daniel was over the Magi, brilliant guy. Follow the stars they've seen. Now, also, they would have had access, I believe, obviously, because they stole everything from the Jewish people. So they would have access to Daniel, the greatest thinkers, the greatest elites, their scrolls. They would have access to Isaiah. And, we talk about the Isaiah scroll and how, complete it is.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what Isaiah 60 says. So to answer your question, I found Isaiah 60, verse 1-3.
Okay.
And then it's verse 6 as well, 1-3 and verse 6.
Okay.
Listen to the language. It's so the Christmas passage. It's amazing. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the peoples. But the Lord will rise upon you, and his glory will be seen upon you. And nations, guys, not just the Jewish people, nations shall come to your light. Isn't that crazy? Nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. Verse 6, they shall bring gold and frankincense, and shall bring good news, the praises of the Lord. Arise, shine, your light has come. The nation shall see your light, and they shall come bringing gold and frankincense. This is okay. So it's like, did they have Isaiah and they go, well, we're told the light will come. We see this light in the sky. Let's follow it. It's leading us to this location. this Isaiah prophet that Daniel introduced us to, where we have access to his scroll, tells us to bring gold and frankincense. At least we know gold, frankincense, myrrh. But let's just let two of these gifts. They shall bring gold and frankincense. Now, even if they didn't have this and just God put it on their heart to bring gold and frankincense to fulfill Isaiah. So either God put it on their heart to bring these gifts and they fulfilled Isaiah that way, or they fulfilled Isaiah by reading this and going, we're the nations and we shall follow that light. We shall follow this. Right. And that star that shall come from Israel that Numbers talks about. I mean, to me, my mind's like all these insane connections are coming together. This light shining, the nation shall go. And this is, again, why it is interesting. Matthew writing to Jewish believers, like trying to convince Jews, this is the Jewish Messiah. And then these Gentiles come and say, where is the King of the Jews? And knowing this, the gospel is for the nations. It's not just for the Jewish people. The nation shall come. And so there's a few significant reasons why gold, frankincense, myrrh, but my favorite is that it just fulfills Isaiah 60 verse 6. They shall bring gold and frankincense, good news, and the praising the Lord. And that's exactly what they did. Like, oh my gosh, he's here. God is here. Emmanuel, the star that shall rise is here. So to me, like it wasn't until probably last year I spent some time on this Isaiah 60 passage, because there's a lot of Christmas passages. Isaiah 60 wasn't just on my bingo card, it's like one of the passages. Right. But this has become one of my favorites, where you're going, God, you're so good that you made the nations aware of this star that shall come and shine light and bring us out of darkness. And that it will lead us to praise you, to worship you, to glorify you. Exactly what these magi did. They saw your star, they brought the gold and frankincense, they're worshiping you and praising you. Whether it's through Daniel, whether it's through the alignment of the stars, or God using this miracle, whatever, all these things you have in place. And you know what's so cool? So it's like, who's seeking who? Is it the wise men seeking God, or is it God seeking the wise men? Because we kind of portray the story as like, look at wise men still seek Jesus. We have all of these. I think, yes, they do. However, God clearly set things up in a way to reach them. God clearly made passages or put people in their lives or line the stars, however you want to put it, essentially to reach these people. Now, again, I always want to have a caveat. By no means are we saying look at the stars for truth. Right. Like by no means are we saying look at these outward signs. We have scriptures, we have prophecies, we have something way better than that. However, God, I love this. One author wrote it this way: God provided a celestial sign that the Magi, with their knowledge of the heavens, could recognize and follow. Yes. Basically, God met them where they're at. Exactly. That's what I love about it. Is that's why I'm kind of joking, tongue in cheek, as good pagans. But that's really what it is. That is something that they placed tremendous value in, and God met them on that level, provided a sign, fulfilled prophecy in doing so, and it was effective to bring them to the right place at the right time. Dude. And I love what you said. Maybe they didn't know about the need to bring gold and incense in order to fulfill this prophecy. Maybe they just brought that out of their own cultural sensibilities, and God behind the scenes knows that they're fulfilling a prophecy. Or maybe they did. Either way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't become an invalid fulfillment of a prophecy based on you knowing that you're fulfilling the prophecy. Especially if you're a Gentile pagan. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like that I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, well they knew that they were supposed to bring gold and incense, so they did. So it doesn't count. No. It still counts. If God tells me that he begins a good work in me and we'll see it to completion, it being seen to completion, just because I know that doesn't mean that it isn't being seen to completion. If God is going to do something and does it, he still does it. Yeah. And my knowledge of that, or my role and participation with that, doesn't invalidate the thing that God is doing. And the same applies here. So I think this is a really important point. It's probably worth noting, like, just the symbolic meaning of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Not like maybe we want to just put that as it's sidebar. Maybe it's like cherry on the top, but I think it's Origen, one of the church fathers, who actually wrote this out first. So this is not like us making this up, but he connects gold to royalty. Clearly that's like gold, beauty, royalty. Frankincense to deity, and myrrh to his humanity. And just even the idea of the cross, like, these gifts in a sense would be used again. And it's kind of funny. I love it. I think as one author said, it's kind of funny that you bring God the asphalt of heaven. Yeah, exactly. Like, what is gold to God? It's just the streets we're going to walk on. It's asphalt. Like, here's a gift, asphalt. That's not a great gift. But just acknowledging, though, like the fact that it says they opened their gifts in Matthew's gospel. It says they fell down and what? They worshiped him. Yeah. And you don't see Mary and Joseph and said, do not worship him, for he is not worthy of worship. Right. You don't see that. Right. They worshiped him. Yeah. Because he is Emmanuel. Yeah. Because it's not just God with us in this esoteric way. God's with you. God's with me. God's with them. No, it's literally God. God is with us in this. He is walking among us. They worshiped him. They opened their treasures. They offered him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. And so I love that idea too. They came with gifts. They came seeking. They came with gifts. man, today I would say for us, why we're even kind of walking this story is God has given us incredible gifts. God has sent his one and only son. He is deity. He is human. He's fully God. He's fully man. Isaiah 9 tells us this. A son is given, deity. A child is born, humanity.
Mhm.
You know, you see him being worshipped, but you see him clearly being born of a woman. So you see this God man, you know, and this is how we need to know Jesus as that. He's not just man and he's not just God. Like Jesus took on human flesh.
Mhm.
He is fully God, fully man. This is the hypostatic union. This matters. The incarnation teaches us this. The Old Testament teaches us this. And again, this is the only time frame that makes sense. This one who will come in on a donkey, you know, like this idea in Zechariah 9:9. It's crazy when you go, man, I don't think that would happen in 2026 almost now. I don't think that would happen. This only makes sense in this range. The stars, the Daniel passage, like this only makes sense. This Zechariah 9:9 passage, coming in on a donkey, being worshipped. I mean, this only makes sense, I think, in this era. And that's why we're going, guys, please, like, do not miss the person of Jesus. He's the only one who could not just fulfill it being born in Bethlehem, not just fulfill it that he's from the tribe of David, but fulfill it from the time frame in which the Messiah will be made known and cut off for his people.
Absolutely. We should also mention, I want to hit this in closing, because I do think this is important. At a symbolic level, let's just add on to everything that we've already covered, that Bethlehem literally means house of bread. Mm-hmm. And Jesus calls himself the bread of life. Mm-hmm. That's really significant.
So good.
Jesus is born in a manger, which is basically a cave in the wall. It's a very it's humble beginnings, to put it mildly. That is also significant because he, as the glorious Prince of Heaven, incarnates himself, comes low to be a servant of all. He says, and that begins at day one. Mm-hmm. That is very beautiful and very significant. That is to typify God coming low. The incarnation is an act of humility, is an act of service, is an act of love. And that is typified in this dusty, dirty beginning place to his human life. But let's not forget that those tiny eyes that look up are reflecting the stars that he himself created. Although he is, like you said, fully human, he is also God with us, as his name indicates. And I think it's really, really important to see God coming low, God coming into an obscure city like Bethlehem, and God being inside of a container where horses would have eaten food out of. It is also symbolically so relevant to tell us, like I said, Bethlehem means he is the bread of life, but here he is, taste and see that the Lord is good. He's there inside of a food container. I don't think I'm reading into this. He later on in his life says, "This is my body broken for you. Eat, taste and see that the Lord is good." Here I am, born in a dusty manger, his baby body placed inside of a horse trough. I think that is beautiful and so significant. He is intended to be. He is coming to us as an offering. He is coming to us as a gift. I mean, I would even say maybe the centrality of gifts at Christmas,
of course,
ties back into the fact that the ultimate gift that was given on the first Christmas, on day one. And I don't care if you're an atheist, skeptic, Hindu, Buddha, there is something so beautiful about that, that the creator of all things presents himself as a gift to humanity at the first Christmas. He's also, one other thing, he's also called the light of the world. He calls himself, a light has come into the world. And so he is the light of the world, and he's being lit by a celestial star pointing down at him. It reminds me of when God the Father says, "This is my beloved Son with whom I am well pleased." Pay attention to this one. In little old Bethlehem, there is a baby being born who is the light of the world. He is the hope of the world. He is the light of the world. And his light will cast out darkness. And that goes all the way back to the start of the podcast of Genesis 3:15. His light will cast out darkness. He's the only one that can do it. Like, there's so much built into the symbolic attributes surrounding the birth of Christ that is so deep and so beautiful and absolutely worth reflecting on. And again, you can say, "Oh, it's all just made up. It's all a story." It's corroborated in history. It's enmeshed inside of history. Roman historians are writing about it. Historians are confirming all of this, and it is just good story. Dude. It's just beautiful poetry. It is symbolically rich and meaningful and nourishing at every level.
The counterintuitiveness of the story is a reason why I believe this story. Like, you have to really consider what you just said. The fact that it is pagan sorcerers worshiping Jesus as Lord, worshiping him. The fact that it's shepherds in a field, the first ones to meet this baby. Like the fact that if I were to write a story about God entering the earth, he's going to be in a palace and he's going to have the best and brightest around. You know what I mean? He's not going to have the shepherds. And like what you described too, yes, he is the bread of life. Yes, it is Bethlehem. Yes, he's also wrapped in swaddling clothes. And the angel's like, this is a sign to you shepherds. You're going to find a babe wrapped in swaddling clothes. And these shepherds, who I would say most likely, I would almost want to say guarantee, are raising the sheep that will be slaughtered in the temple. They're shepherds in Bethlehem, which was known for raising the sheep that would be slaughtered. Male sheep without blemish slaughtered in Jerusalem. What is that? What is that? Like a male without blemish slaughtered in Jerusalem. This is the idea. Jesus is that lamb. He's that lamb who's wrapped. He's born in a manger amongst animals. He's that lamb, that pure lamb without blemish, who would become the sacrifice of the world. Like even how that's a sign for the shepherds. Like there's so many vantage points to the story of the gospel that it's insane. It's outrageous. And that's what we're trying to say is you can't write this. If we were to write this, it wouldn't be this messy. It wouldn't be this weird of like as a Jewish book reaching the Gentiles and let's throw some shepherds in. You want your God to appear strong and authoritative, and he came down, and no, he's born in a manger. Shepherds are worshiping him. Eventually these magi get to him and they say, there he is, the King of the Jews. It tears Herod apart where he wants to undo everything. Babies are being slaughtered. They flee. This story is so chaotic and messy. And part of me loves that. My God, thank you for entering our mess. Like, thank you for entering into the chaos. And even after you entered, it's just more chaos. And it's just like showing us like he had to come. The darkness of man, the sinfulness of man, the want to murder children, want to go on the hunt. You see like this is the only option, is that God actually had to walk among us, suffer with us, suffer among us, suffer for us, eventually die on our behalf. And until the Messiah, the Prince, is cut off. This 483 years, that only makes sense. I'm sorry, there's no other. This decree to restore and build Jerusalem. When did that happen? This idea that the Messiah would be cut off. I'm sorry, I have a time frame of start date, end date. It's only fulfilled in the person of Jesus. There's no other option.
And all of this, like just to bring it back to the start, is it's all in the background of all things Christmas.
Yes.
The secret of Christmas is that love is at the center of everything. And whether we know it or not, the gifts that we give and the concept of we want to spend time with family, even our love of, well, it's really cool how Rudolph, loved his enemies. He was bullied and yet he charges into the night to face, like, on and on. Or Santa, man, I wish there was someone like Santa. Oh no, kids, Santa's not real. Santa's a myth. Oh, too bad. There is no magic in the world. Santa's a myth. Oh, I guess everything is material. No, like the reason that we love Christmas is because we're human beings, and the real Christmas story is the best Christmas story.
Yeah.
The secret of Christmas is that at the center of everything is love himself. Jesus Christ, God with us. So we don't need to burst our kids' bubbles that Santa's not real. Yeah, we need to tell our kids there's someone so much greater than Santa who is real. The true Christmas story is so much better than the Christmas myths. Every Christmas myth, if it's doing any decent job carrying any weight at all, is merely reflecting the true Christmas story. Why do we like Frosty? Well, he's a really good friend. Well, he's a better friend. Why do we? We could do a whole thing on that. Just how the myths of Christmas reflect the truth of Christmas. But the point is, I hope, maybe someone listening to this is at least encouraged, or I don't know. I get fired up talking about it because it's like, literally, I'll say it one more time. The secret of Christmas is that it's real. And I say secret, not like trying to sound like Gnostic or something. Like the quiet part that we often don't say out loud is that it's real. And it's better than any other. It's better than the story of Frozen. It's better than the story of Santa. The true story of Christmas is deeper and richer and more meaningful. And it contains inside of it something that is both what we really hope would be true and what has been demonstrated to us that is actually true.
That's good, bro.
Which is that love is at the center of everything. God loves us so much that he entered into our story. Like Shakespeare writing himself into Hamlet. Like in a quiet and seemingly insignificant way, as quiet as snow falling on a Christmas Eve night, he entered in. But that changed everything for us. And that's a note that I want to end on, is like the real Christmas story is the best Christmas story. And why do we let these silly fables take precedent?
That's probably a different podcast. But
that's a whole other.
But you're absolutely right.
But I love like as a Christian, obviously I do. But like I think that the Christmas story is one of the most underutilized apologetics.
It's amazing.
Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. I
Mm.
think it's one of the most underutilized apologetics because it feels like, oh, that's just a holiday. That's just a Christmas thing.
Yes.
I mean, we've done probably a C- job of laying out the case for that here, but
Yeah.
hopefully we've hit at least enough to raise people's curiosity
Yeah.
around this. The best things that you hope for are true.
This is the best description of Christmas. Good news, great joy for all people.